All right, guys, we're going to go ahead and get started here. Want to welcome you all to the regularly scheduled council meeting for the governing body of Spring Hill, Kansas on Thursday, May 9th, 2024. And we do have Pastor Jay Sloan with Believe Church and his wife here to do the invocation. You guys could stand with me if you're able.
God, we thank you so much for the breath that we have, the life that we have, the prosperity that we experience. We pray, God, for prosperity upon Spring Hill. I pray for wisdom for its leaders to make the right decisions, the right choices, no matter how minuscule they may seem. I pray, God, that your hand will touch and be present in this meeting tonight. I pray that you will resolve any conflicts or unresolved issues that there may be, that there will be resolution and conclusion to those matters. Lord, I just pray that you be with our commerce and you will bring good success to all the businesses and all the industry that is here. Lord, we thank you for this meeting. We thank you for this opportunity to be together for the further improvement and maintenance of our city. We pray that Spring Hill will be a place that will always focus and look to you for guidance and trust. It's in Jesus' name we pray.
Amen. Please remain standing for the pledge.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Well, we did have Councilman Brian Verbraken is out of town on vacation with his family. But other than that, if Madam Clerk, if you could please take the roll.
Mr. Young,
Here.
Mr. Peel,
Here.
Mr. Van Houten,
Here.
Mrs. Feeback,
Here.
Mr. Van Verbraken. Mayor, would you have a quorum present?
Thank you very much. Next, we'll move on to approval of the agenda, and we did have a request to remove executive session number 2, and then also discussion item number 10. Other than that, are there any questions or comments? If not, I entertain a motion to approve the agenda as amended.
So moved.
Second.
Got a motion and a second. Is there any further discussion? If not, all those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries 4-0-0. Next, we'll move on to citizen participation. This is a time when community members can come in and citizens can speak their mind and say whatever they would like to say. We had one person sign up but then mark their name off. So if there's anyone in the audience that would like to come up and speak, now would be your time. If not, we'll go ahead and close citizen participation and move on. Next item on the agenda is presentation, and it's the 2023 pavement condition analysis and report by Lamper Nearson. And I don't know your name.
It's Greg.
Evening, thanks, Mayor and members of the council for having me.
Is your mic on? I don't think it is.
Hello.
Button on the bottom.
It's blue. Blue means on.
Can you hear me now?
There you go.
I'm back here. All right, there you go.
Perfect.
Evening, thanks for having me, Mayor, members of the council. My name is Greg Van Patten. I'm with Lamper Nearson Engineers. I've been doing street projects for the city for a few years now, and most recently the street maintenance projects. And this is the pavement condition assessment with a street maintenance plan for the city. So what do we do when we're developing a street maintenance plan? We look at a few things. What do you have is where you want to start. What do you own? And then what condition is that in? And then we've got what kind of tools do you want to throw in your toolbox? Things you can do to maintain what you've got. And then lastly, we look at how much funding is available and what makes sense for those tools that you can use. So what does Spring Hill have? You've got 141 lane miles of city streets. We estimate that valuation to be $149 million. And the significance of that is it's probably the most expensive thing you own. A large majority of your streets are asphalt. And so what we're using for developing a street maintenance plan and the condition of your pavement is the fundamentals of of pavement management that was developed by Mo Shaheen. He's with the Corps of Engineers out of Colorado State, and he started this program for airports, but it's widely used for city streets as well. So this graph is showing it's just kind of a typical conceptual pavement life cycle and the costs associated. So what you're seeing here is if you've got a street in perfect condition up in the top left corner, over time it's going to begin to deteriorate, and if you do nothing, eventually it's going to fall to a point where it's going to need major rehabilitation costs to bring it back up to a good standard. And that's going to be significantly more cost than if you do the first blue line work there is showing something small like maybe crack seal or base repair, a few base repairs, and as you work your way down, you're probably seeing something a little bit more significant like chip seal or UBAS or a mill and overlay. But all of those things are less expensive than full out reconstructing your streets, which is what happens when your pavement condition dips to the serious failed and maybe even very poor condition. So this is an index showing how so Stantec ran your city streets last year with a pavement inspection van, and it uses laser technology and picks up all the cracks and distresses and it rates the severity of those cracks and distresses in your pavement, and then it cranks out a number, what we call a PCI, a pavement condition index. So this the index here is showing you, you've got your good streets are 100 to 85 and so forth. The significant a couple of things that are significant here is when you get into the fair section, the yellow, 55 to 70, that's when we recommend you do a surface treatment like a chip seal or a mill and overlay, UBAS. After that, your base repairs are going up, and when base repairs go up, the costs for maintaining your streets significantly go up. When you get down to like I said, the serious and failed, you're probably in reconstruct territory. You can put and very poor maybe as well. At some point, the base repairs are so substantial that it's actually more cost effective to reconstruct the street. If you've got more than 20 or 25% base repair in a pavement section, it's actually more effective to just reconstruct the whole thing. Yeah, I think I covered everything I wanted to with that slide. The Spring Hill map. So this map that you're seeing on the right hand side is showing after Stantec ran the streets in June, and a lot of the work we did last year carried into the late summer, kind of fall. So using paver, I reset the PCI up to 100 after we maintained these streets with chip seal. So all those streets that are blue are your good streets, and everything south of what's that? You've got your downtown area, which is your grid. What's the street just north of that? Everything south of there that's blue is for the most part was what we did last year. There's a bunch in the downtown area, and then in the bottom right hand corner, there's a lot of streets we did there as well. The average PCI at the time they ran it was 54.4, and then after the 2023 maintenance, it jumped up to 64.3. That's a substantial jump, and that's because the program we did last year was significant. We would like to see your network average of at least 70, and less streets in the poor or below category. Like I said, I mean the more streets that are out of your very poor and lower, the better, because those are your streets that are likely reconstruct. I just remembered the thought I wanted to mention in the last slide. We have been putting chip seal on some of these streets that are in that very poor category, and they're not expected to last as long, but it's gonna get you to your next. It's gonna cover those cracks that are there, and it's gonna get you to the next maintenance that's needed. So this is a breakdown of that map in a graph. It's the PCIs are a weighted average of the full street. And actually, I've got an error there. I believe what you're seeing there, that's not from the June 2023, but that's later in the fall. That graph represents after the
Repair.
all the maintenance was done in 2023. And we project the PCI to fall by 6 points in 5 years if no maintenance is performed. So this is just examples of what failed and serious streets look like. That's what we call the defect there that you're seeing is what we call alligator cracking, and it shows a base failure when you've got the cracks like that. So those are just some examples of when a street is needing to be reconstructed. Here's going over what can you use. What can you put in your toolbox? I've got a few things here, but we recommend doing 8 to 12% of your streets per year, and so I've got a plan that includes heavy chip seal, maybe a little bit of UBAS or mill and overlay as well. That would be a 1.15 million annual street maintenance plan. You'd include crack seal and base repair as well. You want to crack seal your streets and base repair them ahead of these surface treatments. We also want to crack seal streets that are 3 to 5 years old that have received surface treatment. It helps. Crack seal's the least expensive treatment you can do that helps keep your good streets good. You're sealing up those cracks so the water doesn't get in there.
Yeah, because ultimately all the water and moisture is what kills them.
Yeah, right, exactly. I've also got in there ultra bonded asphalt, so it's chip seal. We estimate $3.7 per square yard. Its lifespan is 8 years if it's a good street. You know, some of those streets that we've done that are like very poor, if you put chip seal on them, they might last like 5 years or something like that. UBAS is a technique you can use, estimating $10 a square yard. It looks, if you're not familiar with UBAS, it looks a lot like a mill and overlay. It's just a bit more open graded. We actually call it a bonded chip seal. It seals up the cracks as well with emulsion.
And for an example on that, Webster Street that we did about 2.5 years ago, that was all UBAS going
Right.
down through there.
Yes, correct. And it would also require crack seal approximately every 4 years. Another thing I've got in here is to implement a biannual neighborhood street reconstruction program. This is for those streets that are failed in serious condition. If we keep putting chip seal on top of these streets, you know, it's going to last less and less long, or you're just going to have to spend more and more base repairs. So if you can bring a street back up to a brand new street and then maintain it once it gets down into that fair category, that's what the purpose of the biannual street maintenance or biannual neighborhood street reconstruction project would be. And if we estimate $2 million per mile. So this slide's just showing the proven success of this program. We've used this in Roland Park. They did more of closer to a 50-50 split between chip and UBAS, but they also had less lane miles than Spring Hill. We started in 2015, and their PCI was a 56. In 3 years, it slowly went up to 57.9. The reason for that is while you're starting to maintain more of your streets, the rest of your streets are continuing to depreciate. So it takes a little bit to actually see the significant bump. Now, last year, you know, going from 54 to 64 we did a lot in a year last year. And then in 2022, they were up to 65 PCI. Their budget's $500,000, and that represents the 62.3 lane miles they have. Like I said, we used UBAS, chip seal, mill and overlays, and crack seal and base repair like we're recommending. And they've got a biannual street maintenance, street reconstruction program. So in conclusion, your network average is a 64.3 currently. Without maintenance, we'd expect your PCI to continue to depreciate. The objective is to mitigate future costs by performing yearly maintenance. We want to decrease those poor streets and increase the streets in fair, satisfactory, and good. We call this program Keep Your Good Streets Good. We want to try and tackle the stuff that's already in good condition so that it doesn't dip below that fair category and then increase costs with base repairs.
And that's a challenge for us up here because we hear the public, they always want the worst streets done first, which is understandable. But then, like you say, you want to keep your good streets good as well. So it's a game for us up here to try to figure out how to do both of those. And make
Absolutely. We hear that challenge frequently, and if we can be of any help to, hopefully something like I'm doing today gets the word out. So we do recommend to bring Stantec back in every 3 to 5 years. It's the depreciation curve that we use in paver is like a nationwide curve, but if we bring Stantec back, we can actually use that for Spring Hill streets, every street here, and we can actually see how your streets are performing, what their curve is. And then we recommend finding additional funding sources. Any dollar helps. The goal is a budget of 1.15 million. So thanks for your time. Do you have any questions for me?
I have some questions for you.
Sure.
Can you go back to the slide? I think it was like 2 or 3 back where you were going, let's see. No, go forward a little bit. It has the next one. The next one. Okay, a couple more. Okay, here we go.
Yeah.
Okay, so my question is, so you're estimating to budget the 1.15 million, and that's for 1 year.
Yes.
So what comes in that? So does everybody get together and decide this, because it's gonna cost more for the ultra thin bond, so we can't put that all over the place. So how do we,
Good
how does that
question.
work?
Yeah, good question. So that 1.15 is all in. It includes soft costs, engineering, construction administration, observation. We've got the crack seal, the base repair that's needed in prep of the surface treatment. And then I did a heavy chip seal. So I think it was like 80% chip seal versus 20% UBAS is what I used to come up with that plan.
Okay.
Yeah. And that does 8 to 12% of your streets per year. So if you're going to go, if you're going to see, let's do 50-50 chip seal and UBAS, you're going to have to increase your costs to reach that 8 to 12%, because UBAS is that much more expensive than chip seal.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, and then when you say a lifespan of approximately a certain number of years, let's say it goes under that, is your work warranted, or how does that work?
No, that's just a rough estimate based on every street's going to perform differently based on what's under it, the traffic it receives, the weather. I'm giving, instead of saying 8 years, I probably should have said 5 to 8 years, giving you a range. UBAS, it says 10 years. We've seen UBAS streets that are performing well beyond 12 years. It is more of a range depending on that particular street.
Thank you.
No problem.
So we jumped on PCI about 10 points from last year's work.
Correct.
What's a good goal for us? And that's a big jump.
Yeah.
We shouldn't expect that every year, depending on how much funding we have.
Right.
What would be a good annual goal for PCI increasing that we could set for ourselves, or like is trying to get 5 more points each year? Is that a reasonable goal?
And then going along with that, if let's say we do come up with $1.15 million, where would that get us percentage PCI wise approximately, or where do you expect?
It'd probably only be 2%, right? Basically, we did 5 million last year and we got 10%.
Yeah.
It's all relative.
I mean, that's
It is a
variables.
It is a difficult question to answer. There's a lot of variables. I would probably have to get into some spreadsheets and crank out some calcs for that one, but, you know,
Where I was going,
I think
with
2
that-
to 3, a rise of probably 2 or 3 PCI per year would be expected.
that's pretty reasonable.
Yeah,
Okay.
until you get to a point where you haven't addressed your failed and serious streets, and they're really bringing down your piece. The rest, this is your network PCI. This is the 64.4 is all of Spring Hill's
Yeah.
PCI. Obviously, you've got some streets that are at 100 right now from being maintained last year, and others that are needing to be reconstructed.
Where I was going with it is that a 10-point jump is not going to be a realistic goal annually.
I wouldn't expect it.
Yeah.
Again.
So, trying to kind of make sure we set our expectations correctly.
Yeah.
So you think somewhere between like 3 and 5 a year is probably more realistic.
Yeah.
That's still,
Yeah.
that's pushing it, I think.
Yeah. Probably.
We're
yeah,
talking
probably.
about
I always
1 to
aim-
3.
I always aim
It's like
high.
you, it's like you said though, it's 5 years, or we spent 5 million to get what?
To get the 10%. I
To
mean,
get
so
the
that gives you
10%,
1 or
so now
2
if
a
you get
year,
down-
yeah.
Exactly, if you look at it that way, then it's.
With how bad the other ones fail, but
Yeah. But I mean, depending on which streets you pick for which year,
exactly, you're gonna get a
you
lot
could
less.
spend, you could spend $1 million and go up half a point if it's all on one really bad street.
Exactly, that's kind of what I'm.
Roland Park went up 9 in 7 years. That's an example. They were starting at 56, and you were starting at 54.
So yeah, 3 years and barely went up 2 points.
So we did pretty good going 10 in 1 year.
There was a significant jump last
So
year.
last year was a really good year.
Yeah.
We chip sealed a lot of streets that were in that poor category.
And we
they'll-
scheduled
you'll
to chip
see
seal the other.
I would expect to see their depreciation steeper than a street that was starting at a good spot.
Yeah,
But we did base repair a lot of that stuff too,
Yeah.
yeah.
so that they would last longer.
And I think we have the plans to do the rest of Old Town, so that'll make a significant jump, at least on some of the worst.
Could see a pretty good jump.
Correct. Where was that map?
Because I think all the Old Town is in the red.
All the left side of.
Yeah.
Yes, that's the plan for this year is to tackle that.
So do you sub it out then, the people that actually perform the work on the roads?
Yeah, so we're the engineer.
Okay.
We bid it to a contractor that would perform the work.
Okay, so I wasn't in this position last year, were we? I mean, did we get any
Who did we use
complaints?
last year?
McEnany did the base repairs last year, and Harbor did the chip seal.
Yeah.
It'll be a lot of the same competitors, I would expect.
This year, Tandem Paving is doing. Actually, Harbor's doing the chip seal this year. I think Vance Brothers.
Vance did, yeah.
Vance Brothers did the chip seal last year,
Yep.
and
Go ahead.
yeah, this year Tandem Paving is doing the base repairs. They gave a very good price this year.
We'll take it.
Yeah.
So do we get complaints last year? I mean, was
From the
everybody
citizens, you
pleased?
mean?
Yes.
The chip seal.
Everybody hates chip seal.
It's
Chip
cool on
seal has-
sides, on neighborhood streets, that was the biggest complaint, was the chip seal. But I think we were talking about different ways to sweep it
Yeah.
more effectively after.
Well,
That was kind of our.
we
issue, I think, last
spec to sweep it 3 times. So they do an initial sweep of like a few days or a week after, and then they come back in a month, sweep it again, and they come back in another month or 2 months and sweep it again
Yeah,
because of the loose rock. Yeah.
yeah.
It's just a little bit messier, but it's also an affordable method.
Yeah.
So like, I would expect we're gonna be using it a lot.
Yeah.
It's at least half the cost of UBAS and then probably a third the cost or less or more than a mill and overlay. This year your chip seal price is $3 a square yard. What we have been seeing was 3.7. That's what
I thought we were close to
That's
4
dropped a
last
little
year.
bit.
that's what I've got in my estimate. But you got a good price on chip seal and base repair this year. It was a good bid.
So has UBAS dropped at all, or is that still around 10?
I have not bid a UBAS project in Kansas this year. But I'd
Can you go back to the pictures you had of the serious and the failed?
Sure.
So to me, these don't look nearly as bad as some of the streets we have. So this is pretty good in some ways. So we're looking at complete overhauls on the ones that are worse than this. I mean, there's no way. I mean,
Well-
is it even worth it to chip seal?
Yeah, are you talking about like streets where you're seeing potholes?
Not even that. It's like just total.
Well,
No,
some
This
of
is showing.
Mainly over, probably Old Town, I would say, is where I see most of it.
Let's say some of the streets with potholes aren't alligatored like this. They have a
Yeah.
lot of bad areas, but the whole entire street's not alligatored like this.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, you can see this. The entire right lane is alligator cracked from as far as you can see, and that's just all base failure.
Yeah. I'm thinking more there's a lot of like uneven cracks to where there's like a crack and it's this far off on certain.
Yeah.
So those are, I would think,
You know
same
that.
type of failure, or is that not?
So going back to how Stantec and Mo Shaheen's program that we use, there's all these different kinds of defects. So alligator cracking's one. It shows a base failure, and it rates higher than others. You might have wide cracks or one that like a motorist might feel a wide crack more than they'll feel driving on this. They'll feel that bump, but it's a localized repair, and it this is
So that's
much
less
more
of an issue than.
this is much more substantial
Okay.
than what like a pothole that like a 2x4 pothole or a wide crack that goes across the width of your street. Those are smaller base repairs than what this is here.
So to a guy who doesn't know anything, that seems worse than this, but this makes sense that this is worse if it's a bigger problem, longer problem, it seems like.
Yes, yeah,
Okay.
it's the cost is more for what you're seeing here.
Well, like a crack, you can just cut, a 2-foot slice the crack out and
Yeah.
do the base. Whereas this, I mean, you gotta take that whole
The calls you'll hear from residents are probably about the potholes and
and the cracks. Yeah,
That's what
exactly.
they feel when they're driving on them. But when the street fails, it's because of alligator cracking. All those cracks that are allowing moisture to get in below them.
So is it fair to say that like once a street gets to this point where it's got significant alligator cracking, like chip seal's really not an option?
Well, we have chip sealed stuff like this just to, see how far it'll get you. Yeah.
But realistically, chip seal is not. That's a very small Band-Aid for something in this kind of condition.
And
You overlay that picture there with the Sears Street example.
so it's got curves in it. So if you overlaid it, you could edge mill and you could raise the crown. But if you overlaid it, you'd be filling in the curves. If you
Yeah, so you'd have to
And-
mill it.
Mill it first.
Yeah.
The other big reason why we use chip seal so frequently on streets like this is likely there's not enough base here to mill and overlay it. If you mill off to 2 inches, you might be on dirt, or maybe there's an inch or two underneath that. And whenever they back up their trucks to perform the overlay, they're going to destroy that base.
Yeah.
So then you just ruin the street you were trying to fix.
Just made it worse. Yeah.
Whereas a chip seal, you're not taking anything off. You're just putting down the emulsion in the rock.
And
So that's
essentially,
why
we're
it's
just
better.
buying ourselves a few more years until we have to do a bigger repair on it.
It's another benefit of UBAS. UBAS, you only take off a 1/2 inch versus a mill and overlay taking off 2 inches. So you've got a better chance of saving your base on a UBAS as well.
So what do we do on South Victory? Was that UBAS or was that a mill?
Mill and
I think we added 3 inches.
Yeah, it was mill and overlay.
We overlaid.
Just overlaid, okay, but it was 3 inches.
Yeah.
Okay.
I don't think there was anything to mill.
Yeah, there wasn't much there. That's
Yeah.
right.
It's point repairs there.
Yeah.
Same thing with Woodland. There wasn't anything to mill. It was just overlay on it.
Just dust.
Except I think we did 5 inches on Woodland. Yeah, 5 or 6.
There were there were certain locations that there was a lot of asphalt.
It's great now.
Yeah. I see a lot more bikers on Woodland now.
Any other questions?
No.
Questions, comments? All right. Thank you very much.
Appreciate your time. Thank you.
Thank you.
Put this back. No.
Next, we have a presentation on the Spring Hill debt update by Baker Tilly.
Good evening, Mayor and council members. My name is Ben Hart. I'm with Baker Tilly, city's financial advisor. And I am not here to tell you to finance everything he just said. That's not what I'm here for. We do like to come back and kind of talk about what the city's profile looks like, maybe do a little bit of an education, if not for you, but for the public, on how debt is typically used by a municipality. That's kind of what we wanted to do today. What we typically do is work with Lane and Rhonda, your professional staff, when it comes to items like this. We represent you and you access capital markets for debt. We also watch your financial policies. If Rhonda needs something looked at, we can look at it and compare it against others. Your credit rating is also something we watch. And anything you guys got going on, we usually use that credit rating perspective for that kind of analysis. And then the other thing we started doing is working on grants and any kind of grant research for the city as well. So on the debt profile, like I said, kind of like to talk to you about kind of an overview on municipal debt, maybe a little bit of education for the public. There's two types of bonds or debt that you guys use. We'll call them bonds at this point. Two types of bonds you use. One's general obligation and the other one's revenue bonds. On the left-hand column, the general obligation, you can break it down into special assessments, which you guys see a lot of, use it very effectively. And then just regular revenue or property tax backed. There's a couple other ones in there, sales tax, general sales tax supported, as well as excise tax debt as well. But those are in the tranche of the general obligation. On the revenue bond side, those are supported only by your utility fees. And it's not supported by any kind of property tax. When I say support, when you go to the market, they go, where is this getting paid from? Well, it's going to be paid for by utility revenues, but nothing else, and that's what's shown in the documents. On the left-hand side, it's really everything the city has to offer outside of utility fees is what goes to support those. The other key difference is how you use this, the proceeds from this debt. On the left-hand side, it's anything that's not utility is thrown into the GO column. And Tyler's not here, so he can't prove me wrong. On the revenue side, it's usually limited to the utility capital improvement projects. And these are big capital improvement projects. The ones where you have to do a rehab of a whole road or you're actually constructing a whole road are typically what you see. Interest rates is the last thing that's really differential between the two. On the GO side, you usually get a fairly low interest rate. It's one of the best interest rates you can have because you got a very high credit rating. On the right-hand side, the interest rates are typically a little bit higher only because it's not supported by the entire city revenue structure. So why debt? A lot of, and debt is a four-letter word, but if used effectively, it really launches a neighborhood into existence, just like you do for your special assessments. The top thing is maintaining city cash. I know you've probably heard cash is king. That's kind of the rating perspective as well. That's one of the key aspects of your rating is having enough cash if something happens. We just spent 2 weeks on the news watching tornadoes come through Oklahoma, Nebraska, Iowa. Luckily, it didn't come through here. I can tell you the rating agencies were watching the same thing, and I feel bad for some of those towns that got wiped out. Now, what do? Without the reserves, what happens? And I can tell you, Rhonda can tell you too, anytime we're on a rating call, they ask, okay, have you been affected by your environment? One of those environments is high winds in Kansas, or tornadoes for that matter. So they have what's called an ESG scale, environmental sustainability and governance. And the environmental is really that. It's surrounding that. What do you do? What do you do to offset some of the mitigate some of those items? Cybersecurity is the other one. They ask the questions, are you insured? They usually leave it alone at that. So the second reason you use it against strategic is really finance large-scale projects. And we're talking about complete construction of a new road or ripping up a whole neighborhood and putting all new pavement down. Public transportation in some cases, trails, parks, bikeways. And usually those are all tied together in one kind of strategic use. And those are the ways that I know Lane and Rhonda kind of look at how do we use some of the resources we have? How do you spread that out and how we look at it in the future? Obviously, there's benefits to those issuances. Current revenues, you don't have enough revenues to actually build the whole road or fund a lot of this. Heck, fire trucks for that matter are over $1 million. So how do you fund that with just cash? It's tough to do. And you know all about advancing neighborhood infrastructure. You guys do it very effectively. And then limit the cost of that improvement to just that benefit for that neighborhood instead of the entire city paying for just that neighborhood. One of the big benefits of having GO bonds and special assessments. Now, as far as the city's profile, there are lots of numbers, and I could actually give you a Gatling gun full of these kind of tables and charts, and I'm not going to do that. Just some of the key things we do look at. The statistics on the left-hand side, it just shows you how much you've got outstanding, the interest that's due over that same period, and then the total debt service. And that could be that to any layperson, like my wife or anybody else looking at this, that's a lot of money. But when you look at all the assets you own and what the engineers just talked about, your largest assets is your streets, it's far higher than that number right there. The average life of the debt is one of the key factors we look at. 6 years on everything that's outstanding. The average maturity is 6 years on that. That's under 10, you're in great position. Average annual debt service is around 1.3. The maximum annual debt service, that's when the highest you'd come to. The 6.7 actually includes the maturity of a temporary note that's going to be bonded here in the 2 years. That number's closer to the 1.3, 1.5. So that maximum debt service is a little high. You've got 15 different issues across the spectrum, special assessment, geo, or anything else, utility debt outstanding. One of the key things that I know rating agencies will key in on is the chart on the right. So of all the debt you've got, how much is actually paying off over time? Well, 5 years, 50%, half of it's paying off in 50 years. Or 5 years, sorry, 5 years. 82% of it's paid off in 10 years. That's a key perspective right there. You'll see that within your credit ratings. They like to see that fast amortization, and that's what that is. When you go 20 years out and some entities push a lot of debt out, that number gets really low. And this just means you're staying aggressive and maintaining room in your future for that kind of growth. So you guys are doing it right. And in 30 years, the only reason in 30 years, the difference between a 99.62 and 100% is there's a little bitty KDHE loan that's been stretched out, but that's extremely low interest rate. So it's kind of hard to refinance that and put it together. But you've basically got in 20 years, everything pays off. Now that's of everything you've got outstanding right now. One of the things we look at is how much capacity do we have? And some entities look at this calculation right here, and it's the bottom number. How much capacity do we have right now to issue debt? Well, if you were to stop everything as of 12/31/23 last year, you'd have 27 million, and that's it. That's all you have, the room you've got to go. Now, what that is, it's tied to your assessed tangible valuation. And you read the papers. I mean, Spring Hill's one of the fastest growing cities in the metro area. That number's going to continue to go up, anywhere from 9 to 3% if you look at it from a 20-year period. So that number's going to go up, which means your capacity is going to go up. That doesn't mean necessarily that gives you the right or the will to issue that much debt. It just means that you've got that 27. It's probably going to stay that way, if not grow a little bit. So that's it. Again, that's with everything you've got outstanding right now. The next few slides, actually, we added on with Rhonda and Lane's help, we added on what their forecast was for the next 5 years and just some placeholder debt in here. And you can see that the fast slope down is what I'm talking about, the amortization within 10 years. And you can see 2034 is that where it drops. And that's why. It's because of the way you structure your bonds. Now that spike that you see there in 2025 off to the left, that's that temporary note. That'll actually come down and get spread out within the rest of the year. So that's a little weird. But you can see a bulk of this is principal. I know we did some refundings back when debt was really, really low. Like, we've never seen the interest rates that low. We did some refundings to really to be able to take advantage of that low rate. So you've got, your interest isn't as high as what we've seen in the past. But again, this has 5 or 6 different bond issues that are layered on top of it. But this is a great curve. It's fairly fast downward. When you look at them by principal payment source, where does the money come from? This is everything you've got, plus those 5 or 6 issues that extend out to 2027. That lighter kind of peach color is the property tax backed debt. That's the biggest piece. The yellow is the special assessments. You put those two together, and that's really your geo bond look, your tax backed essentially. You've got a little bit of sales tax in there as well. But there again, 2023, you can see that drop. The height of each one of those bars really kind of tell you how aggressive that is paid down. Utility debt is about the same as what the property tax debt. It keeps going down as you move out. Now, here's the 5 different pieces that we added onto the current debt. The current debt is that kind of aqua color. Now, that's the current outstanding bonds you've got. And then we added 2 issues for 25, 2 issues for 26, and 1 issue for 27. And they're a mix of both sewer and street funding or geo funding, just plain vanilla geo funding. And this is the information we've got from staff to be able to layer this in there. So this is just a different perspective on what that looks like. Even layering those in at even debt service payments, you're still sloping downward. So that kind of gives you that look of the overall debt and what it looks like for the city. This is a great perspective. And when I say that, it's good because we were told it was good. When you had a credit rating upgrade, that's one of the things that they look at. It is, like I said, that how much is paid off over a number of years. Some of the other things that they'll look at when we talk to the rating agencies, and this is their language: residential strong assessed value growth over the past 4 years and continued into the future. The next one, I know in the history of Spring Hill in the last, say, 5, 6, 7 years, that's been a struggle. When Lane and Rhonda came on, you guys really worked hard to get your available reserves up and set policies that were up a lot higher. And that was one of the big reasons they decided to increase the credit rating. Any kind of increase in credit rating lowers your interest rate, right? Anyway, from 5, 10, 25 basis points. It really depends on the market. But having the policy set in place for like that last bullet, the general fund balance of 3.3 million, and the strategy to achieve that. It's not, you didn't just set something in the sky and then say, I don't know how we're going to get there. Rhonda marched them through, here's exactly how we're going to get there and why that exists. Detailing out general fund balance, the risks that you're offsetting by having that reserve there. And it was the same analysts that have reviewed you guys for a long time, and they were extremely pleased to see a lot of that conversation. Good financial management policies and practices are a big one. Consistency in executive leadership obviously is a positive. Strategic plan. You've got a strategic plan, and you're moving forward with it. You're hiring the right people to figure out what the history of Spring or the future of Spring Hill looks like. Because you're a fast-growing community, you're doing the right things when we look at it from a financial status aspect or a credit rating aspect. Like I said, your policy is not just a policy to be set; it's actually applied by your staff and evidenced in every year when we go to the rating agencies. The other thing that's not on here that they didn't mention, but is still a strong aspect is your budgeting, budget to actual. When you have an ability every year and you've displayed a trend of having more revenues than expenses, you're very conservative on your revenue forecast, which is great. And then your expenses, you're conservative and budget those high. And when you do that together, you come up with a surplus. That surplus, then how is it used? You pull it, set it aside for cash payment on certain projects. They'll count that as not operating money. They just count that as additional fund balance, which is only a positive to them. And I mentioned the tornado, and I actually had one credit rating analyst ask me how the hurricanes were in Kansas. And I think it was Spring Hill it was that lady that asked me that. I had to think about that, what she was talking about. Never been in a hurricane in Kansas, been here for 30 years. We represent quite a few cities, and the ones that I come across usually aren't as advanced as you guys are in thinking through your policies and applying your practices with the staff in reserves and looking into the future. The only other place I've actually come across that was when where I would have worked in Olathe when it was high growing or fast growing city. You guys are right there doing the same thing. Fantastic work. Debt is an asset to you. I mean, think about it. You have a house, it's one of your bigger expenses. I don't know a whole lot of people that can cash buy a house unless he's, a Kelsey or a Mahomes, and they can do that, but we can't. Normal people can't do that. So you spread that out over a number of years. I know you guys try to limit the amortization to a shorter term from 10 to 15 years. That's a benefit to you. But looking at debt is a great way to move those large assets and put them in place and then depreciate them over time. So with that, I'd be happy to answer any questions you might have.
Can you go back to that credit rating screen? We saw it for just a second and then it went away. And has our credit rating gone up again since last year? I know it went up maybe 6-8 months ago. Is that where we're still at?
Yeah, that AA from a double A minus, right?
Yep.
Right. And you can see the blue is the AAA, the prime credit. That yellow I'm talking about the table after the right. The AA is the high grade. That's a big shift from a AA to a AAA. Usually, and what I've seen in the past is that fast-growing cities are kept at that AA to AA plus. AA plus is you get one more notch in your AAA. They keep that off of the AAA only because there's so much growth that can change a city. And it could be for the negative or it could be for the positive. Right now, you guys are on a trajectory. I'd love to see a AA plus out of this. In the I would say not too distant future, but I can't guarantee that. Rhonda might.
I'd really like to see that. We only receive the rating when we issue debt. And so, because we haven't issued any debt since last summer, we have not received a new rating, and we won't until we do it again.
Right.
Can we go back to the full debt screen that you had? Back one more. Back again. I think it was the one that had all the figures for total debt and all that.
Oh, this one?
Yeah, well, actually, the next one over, sorry. So the debt limit ratio, how is that based off the credit rating, or does that percentage change depending on?
No,
It's
that's a great,
different, like, if we grow too much, does it change the percentage, things like that?
that's a good question. That's a great question. That 30% is what you're referring to. That's actually set by law.
So it's always 30?
It's always 30.
Okay.
It doesn't change unless the legislature, and I haven't ever seen them change it, but that's set by law.
So that actually outstanding debt authority that we might have changes constantly based
Yeah.
off of our each year's
Right.
valuation?
Right, yeah.
Yeah.
It'll change. And just, I did some math before I came here. If you grow the assessed valuation, say by 5 to 3%, and with the debt that you've got, plus the new stuff that I added in there, the 27 goes actually down to 23 and then to 22. If you add more onto it, more debt than what we've already got projected, it may bump it up. But your amortization is so fast, you can fill in some of those blanks and it not harm you.
Yeah,
The other perspective I didn't put in here is the debt per capita.
okay.
It is a good way to compare, say, you to another AA entity,
Yeah.
and we do that a lot. I mean, right now you're around $2,000 per capita on any kind of outstanding debt. It's usually 2.5, $2,500 or $3,000 out of AA category. So it's low for you guys.
And my understanding is the revenue bonds don't actually go towards this.
No,
either,
it
right?
doesn't.
So this is only
These
for
are
go.
only property tax, right? The special assessments aren't part of this either.
So we could technically have a lot more than that, because a lot of the stuff we have coming up is gonna be utility based anyway, so
Yeah,
it's not
right.
actually gonna go towards this.
Right. That's why I say special assessments work to your advantage, and some of those are utilities as well. Just because they're isolated, just like a sales tax revenue bond. If you look at a commercial center, it's only going to that debt, so it's not everybody else's.
So
responsibility.
CIDs go towards the go bond side, right?
Exactly.
Okay.
Yeah. But even that is it can be isolated depending on how the documents are.
Oh, towards utility?
Yeah.
Oh, okay,
It really depends on how the documents are written.
okay. Yeah, that was really the main question I had based off of
Sure.
I didn't know if that 30% changed or if that just stayed constant.
Yeah, it just stays there.
Cause that's what you don't wanna run into if for some reason we had a rating change and they're like, oh, we go down to 25%.
Right. No, that 30% set by law.
Yeah, okay, cool.
Yeah.
Easy enough.
They've got, They've got other measures. It's not like, it's not this one. They actually don't even look at, well, they might look at it, but they don't use it as a weighting factor. But they've got more complicated ratios that they look at that you guys are just stellar on.
Well, I would assume just like personal credit,
Yeah.
what we have available always helps with your credit rating. If
Yep.
we get too close to the limit, there's obviously gonna be a drop.
Yeah,
So,
yeah, and we've got clients that are actually late on their annual audit for 22. As in 22's audit isn't done yet. And that makes a difference in that rating category, because they can produce any kind of set of documents. You just don't know if they're right or not because the audit's not done. That could be cause for a downgrade. I'm not saying you guys would ever be that way, but there's more things than just ratios that matter within that credit rating.
yeah. If we go back to the graphs again, go to the one that you put all the new stuff in, or the projections in. So that's where you were talking about, it really actually drops to
Yeah,
23 or 24 with those.
yeah, with everything you see on that chart, that's when that 27 goes down considerably. Over the next 5 to 6 years, it'll kind of trickle down, million at a time.
Yeah.
But then when you hit that 10-year period, it drops.
Drops significantly.
It goes from like 27 to 16 in that 2034.
Okay. And this is the entirety of debt, or is this just for the go bond side?
No, this is everything.
Okay.
Right. This has everything in it. That's a good point. This doesn't have just what's applicable to that 30%.
Okay, that's, all right.
This is everything.
Yep, those are my main questions.
Any other questions or comments? All right, thank you very much.
You're welcome.
All right,
Thanks
thanks.
for having me.
Next, we'll move on to the consent agenda, and this is items that the staff considers to be routine maintenance, but if there are any questions or comments on that, now would be the time. If not, I entertain a motion to approve the consent agenda as presented.
I move to approve the consent agenda.
Second.
Got a motion and a second. Is there any further discussion? If not, all those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed?
Aye. Sorry, I had to turn my mic.
Motion carries 4-0-0. Next, we'll move on to formal council action. The first item on the agenda is consider approval of task order with Lamper Nearson for construction materials testing for the 215th and Columbia Sanitary Sewer Project. And Mr. Spear, you have the floor.
Good evening, Mayor and Council. So this item is a task order with Lamper Nearson. This is for construction materials testing on the sewer line, off-site sewer improvement project in the area of 215th and Columbia. This task order specifically just covers the construction materials testing. That's our testing to make sure that that sewer line that we'll have to maintain for decades to come is installed correctly. And that's in the amount of $18,785.25. Happy to answer any questions you have.
I drove by there a few weeks ago, and chiseling rock.
That's a lot of rock.
Man, it's a pile, huh?
Yeah.
So that's what so it's the road leading up to that.
It's the actual,
It's leading-
that line and especially the compaction back over, as they dig all that rock out and put the backfill material in, and making sure that gets installed correctly.
And this is over on the west side where the new development's looking to go? Okay.
Yes, yeah, west of 169.
Okay.
Just don't barely on the Johnson County side there, right?
Yeah.
The developments on the Johnson County side.
Right.
The sewer, off-site sewer line work they're doing now.
I say it's on Miami.
It's on the Miami side. Right, right.
That's what I thought. Okay.
Any other questions or comments?
Or no.
If not, I entertain a motion.
Move to approve a task order with Lamper Nearson for construction materials testing for the 215th and Columbia Road Sanitary Sewer Project in the amount of $18,785.25.
I second.
Got a motion and a second. Is there any further discussion? If not, all those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries 4-0-0. Next item on the agenda is consider task order with Lamper Nearson for a traffic analysis of US 169 and K7 and 191st Street intersection, which everybody is happy to hear. Mr. Spear, you still have the floor.
Thank you, Mayor. So, yeah, this is another task order with Lamper Nearson, but a very different topic. So this would be for an analysis of the operational issues, current and projected traffic volumes at the intersection of 191st and 169 as part of a warrant analysis for a potential traffic signal. So this is a required, if we're going to request a traffic signal, we need a current traffic analysis, warrant analysis, looking at what today's volumes are. The most recent study we have is almost 4 years old. A lot has changed in terms of development in that area and traffic patterns. So it's important to get current numbers to help with that analysis to hopefully move that issue forward. It's in this task order is in the amount of $13,645.50. That's for the traffic counts and the study. The study needed meets the KDOT standards for state highways.
So I was talking with Lane about this, and they're extending it a few more days. Is that correct? Like the actual in analyzing the traffic and everything. Is this the one that we talked about, Lane?
Yeah, yes. So the traffic counts, we're going to run those a little longer rather than just a fixed 24-hour period, which is pretty typical. We're going to run those counts for a longer period of time. They'll still be looking for a 24-hour count, but it'll let us get some averages so that if there are fluctuations, for whatever reason, Wednesday is different than Thursday, significantly different, we'll capture that and get hopefully a clearer picture of what's happening.
Especially with some of those businesses over there, they might have a lot more traffic on certain days, like a delivery or whatever.
Yes.
Shipment out.
I was gonna say, yeah, even like a Friday, because with all the storage facility over there, you might get a lot of the larger vehicles that come out. Is this something, obviously, it sounds like we just have to do to kickstart KDOT into looking at it?
Yeah. It's pretty much required. We need a current traffic study to really validate those numbers. If we try to make that ask on old data, it's not going to be looked at favorably.
So what's the process? We do this, we send it over to KDOT, request them looking at a stoplight, and then is it, they do another study, or is it, how does it kind of work?
They do typically they're going to do a review of our study. So they're not going to get new counts. They're not going to start a new study. It's almost a peer review of sorts as they will look at the data and the counts and the analyses in this study, and go from there.
Okay. And do we have a timeline on how long it takes for them to review it?
That varies. They have indicated that they will try to expedite this for us. Now, what expedited means, I don't have a firm definition on that. Do you have any? Yeah.
Hopefully quicker than not.
I think they've been getting pressure kind of from all different areas, because we've talked to everybody we can talk to about it, trying to, issue the significance and importance of it on there and some other intersections, but especially that one. It's just become. We've had another wreck here just this in the last week that I believe 2 people ended up in the hospital. So it's definitely a very serious intersection, and one that I typically, anytime in the morning or evening, I don't cross. I usually go back to the back roads to get back home, because it's just crazy.
And to address that sense of urgency, we're trying to fast track and get, we've got those traffic counts happening now. We really needed to get that in while school is still in session.
Yeah.
Once school is out, the traffic volumes are not, it's not an accurate depiction. So if we didn't get it done, here within the next week or two, then we lose several months waiting for school to start back up in the fall.
That makes sense.
Yeah, I'm 1,000% on board on this one. I think one of the highest priorities in the community is these intersections on 169. We were driving on it the other day when the wreck was there. So, and it's not just that wreck; it's every week just about. So, yeah, this is the highest priority for me, and I think we need to proceed as quickly as possible.
Cool.
I feel like we're making really good progress with KDOT, and this is just another step on the staircase for that, so, yeah.
Any other questions or comments? If not, I entertain a motion.
Move to approve the task order with Lamper Nearson for a traffic analysis off of the 169 K7 and 191st Street intersection in the amount of $13,645.50.
Second.
Got a motion, a second. Is there any further discussion? If not, all those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries 4-0-0. Next item on the agenda is consider approval of resolution number 2024-R-6, adopting the employee purchasing policy, first edition 2024 of the city of Spring Hill, Kansas. And Mrs. Dunn, you have the floor.
Thank you, Mayor. We are making an update to the city's purchasing policy. It's an administrative task, doing a little cleanup from the policy, which was a major revision last year. And as we implemented, there's some things we felt could be better handled this way, and make sure that we are following policy and statutes as we should. In the agenda review, I summarized for you the major changes. It does not change the authority levels. Directors have $10,000. The finance director outside my department, I have $25,000, meaning another department can bring me an invoice to approve, but I can't approve over 10 for my own department. And then $50,000 for the city administrator. It would also allow department directors and the city administrator to sign a purchase order within the authority that they are given, the same authority levels. Not all purchase orders would have to be signed by the mayor, as we've been doing in the last year on taking a conservative position on it as opposed to changing the policy. The other change is that the mayor should sign all contracts. That is set by statute, and in the policy, we were allowing the city administrator to sign policies, but we did not actually do that. We took the conservative path and went with the mayor signing all contracts, which is in line with statute. And so this policy will allow for the mayor to sign contracts under $50,000 based on the authority of the staff. And then anything over $50,000 will come to this council for approval prior to the mayor's signature. The mayor can ask that any contract be put on the agenda if he'd like it discussed here with all of you. Likewise, if he does not want to sign one, the staff or the city administrator can put it on the agenda for that then to be reviewed by all of you if there's some sort of disagreement. We put in a change that equipment worth $25,000 or less can be sold without approval of council. Anything over $25,000 would need to come to council approval before it's sold. And we also want to add in, it's not in policy in writing, that if we choose to sell a piece of equipment through an organization, which I call a trade organization, like the Association of Chiefs of Police, that we have the authority under this policy to do that. Today, we don't have that, but sometimes that's a great avenue to sell very specialized equipment like police cars if we needed to. And can I answer any questions about these changes?
On equipment worth less than 25,000 being sold, are all of those usually sold through those trade sites like you were talking about, or is it? Or do they sell to individuals at all, vehicles and stuff like that?
No,
I know we're on a vehicle plan, but I'm just thinking out.
the policy requires that they're sold by some form of public auction, and so we've used Purple Wave.
Okay, cool. So
Something
it's
we
not
can
like we couldn't go and sell anything for cheap to somebody.
Right, and employees, we cannot sell directly.
That's what I was.
To employees.
Okay.
Right, and that is in the 23 policy that way.
Okay, cool. Other than that, the rest looks fine to me.
Good. Just a little housekeeping on our policy. It's been working well, I think, with those exceptions. Great.
Like you said before, it probably helps with those quick purchases we gotta make rather than waiting for the next meeting. I think it's worth it for, the 25 on the selling and 50 for the purchases.
It was our goal in updating the policy to reduce the administrative burden to council and to staff. So if we can make a decision worth, and I'll give an example. We've brought purchase orders and contracts in here for $2,500. That's really not the best use of your time when that's a small decision, can be made by director and signed and moved on as long as we don't have a contract.
Yep.
then the mayor needs to be involved.
Cool. Great. All right.
Great.
Questions or comments?
I'll move to adopt the resolution number 2024-R-06, adopting the employee purchasing policy, first edition 2024 of the city of Spring Hill, Kansas.
Second it.
Got a motion and a second. Is there any further discussion? Not all those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Resolution passes 4-0-0. Next item on the agenda is consider approval of ordinance number 2024-04, amending section 17.360 of the Spring Hill Unified Zoning Ordinance and Subdivision Regulations. And Mr. Lau, you have the floor.
Thank you very much. So this is our fence code for our zoning ordinance. We went through and made 3 changes to it. The first is just some formatting. Everything was kind of in one big paragraph, so I wanted to make that match the rest of our code and easier to read for everyone out there in the public to kind of figure out what they can and can't do with their fences. As someone with a terrible fence at his house at home, I always like being able to read those a little easier. The other 2 things we added in, so the new subsection 7 will allow front yard fencing just for model homes. This gets us in line with some other cities. Overland Park does this, for example. It's kind of a health and safety thing, so there's no one living in model homes. So one, we want to make sure it's clear and obvious that it's a model home and not anyone's house. People don't need to go up to that door. Reduces the chances of someone trying to get in there. And I don't think there's going to be squatters in Spring Hill, but anyone just trying to get in for any reason whatsoever. And it helps kind of the safety of people who are working in those offices. There's been some issues in other parts of the nation with that. So the front yard fencing just allows that, allows them to have a front fence in their front yard and kind of keeps a cohesive view of those. And then the last part is a procedure for requesting an exception of the fence code. So we just had one in Planning Commission recently. There's something that's kind of already contemplated, and most cities, again, allow people to come in and ask for variances of their fence code, but we don't want to make them go through an actual variance process under state law, because those are more or less impossible to get, especially for a fence. So I wanted to kind of put together a procedure so that the Planning Commission and you all have an idea of what you should be looking at, whether you're granting a fence exception or not, the same way you do any other type of land use request, from rezonings down to this. So any questions?
Did you end up making it to where it's only for utility and like mandatory type things, or is it for anybody who
For
wants?
fence code?
Yeah, for
For exception. So anyone could come in and ask for one,
But it has to be, we have to approve it.
but it would need to be approved under the same guidelines for everybody. So
Okay.
again, that's kind of come down to if someone comes in and says, I want a 10-foot fence because I really don't like my neighbors,
Yeah.
that's not going to qualify under the standards we've set out. So again, we can tweak those standards if you want to make it more of
Well,
a
no, I
really
think in the
specific-
planning
that's
commission,
totally
that was
fine.
just kind of what you were talking about, because it was Evergy or something, right?
Yeah, Evergy.
Right. So that's why I wasn't sure if you went that route or not. If it was
No, it just, yeah, for some uses, everybody wants more of less of an opaque fence or a solid fence, and our code doesn't allow it. So this kind of gives the flexibility as the city grows to allow people to get what they need for their
Well, and
fences.
if there was another utility company that was in the same situation, if we did it specific, or
Yeah, that's
or
why I
a
wasn't
company that
sure.
wasn't a utility company, was something similar, then
Yeah.
this allows us to not have to go back and change it again for.
Right, yeah, commercial industrial uses, people that live on corners a lot of times are asking for something to do with their fence because side yard setbacks are tough. So it's good to have that procedure before someone comes and asks for it, rather than trying to figure out as they're asking, so.
Yeah, and I think we should have some flexibility to where we're like, yeah, I think this one's okay, but I just don't want to lock us into saying we have to say yes to
Yep.
whatever. So as long as an attorney, you think it's.
Yeah, so
You're
we'll set a precedent if you grant one. No 2 requests for almost any land use the exact same, so, yeah. You have that.
So we're not gonna be stuck with saying yes to somebody else, okay?
No. And yeah, if one gets granted and it's a total disaster, you also have the ability to go back and modify your code and say, hey, let's not do this again, that didn't work out, so.
Yeah. Sounds like we'll have enough things in place to keep it from getting out of control.
Any other questions, comments? If not, I entertain a motion.
Move to adopt the ordinance number 2024-04, amending section 17.360 of the Spring Hill Unified Zoning Ordinance and Subdivision Regulations.
Second.
Got a motion and a second. Is there any further discussion? If not, Madam Clerk, could you please take the roll?
Mr. Van Houten,
Yes.
Mrs. Feback,
Yes.
Mr. Peel,
Yes.
Mr. Young,
Yes.
Mayor Berkey.
Yes.
Ordinance 2024-04 passes 500.
Thank you very much. That ends formal council action at this time, and we'll move on to
No, we
announcements.
still have,
Number
we still have the medical.
Oh, I marked it off already, apparently. Sorry.
On down.
Next item on the agenda is consider approval of provider for the city's medical, dental, and vision insurance. And Mrs. Jones, you have the floor. Sorry. I already marked your line off for some reason.
That's okay. So, hello, Mayor and council members. As stated, yes, I'm here to discuss the renewal for July 2024 to June 2025 for medical, dental, and vision for the city's employees. And I'm happy to say that I'm able to do this a little early, partnering with CBiz. I really worked together to push the providers to give us some quotes so that we could hopefully get the new renewal done early so that we're not pushing towards that line when it comes to July 1st. So happy to say that we had 7 quotes that came in for medical from 4 different providers. Our Delta Dental and VSP Vision Insurance stayed the same, so there were no concerns on that piece of it. The providers that gave us quotes were Cigna, who's our current provider, Aetna, Blue KC, and provider Gravi. And so with 3 of those 4 providers, the quotes that were given to us, the plan designs, they range from what I consider too low to little impact to the plan design, to some of them being very significant plan design changes to where it was just overall unfavorable for our employees. And then on top of that, of those 3 to 4 quotes that came in, from those 3 to 4 providers, the costs for the rates and everything were just substantially higher than where we're at right now. So those were not very viable options for us to consider. And one that came in was from Blue KC. Both of their plan designs as well as rates were very favorable for our employees. And so what we wanted to do was obviously recommend going with Blue KC. But I wanted to highlight that irrespective of how the ranges increase anywhere from 30 to 39% when you look at all of the quotes, we did a really great job last year of budgeting when it came to our medical expenses, so that kind of projecting for the market rate increases were included in that, to the point where the increase that we're going to see in our rates for the remainder of 2024 are not going to be impacted by, or not going to impact the budget. It's already enough to cover that. So I just wanted to make sure that we pointed that out as we go into the discussion further. And I also wanted to say that even though the increases are covered and we're not going to see an impact on 24, the staff is still looking at other ways that we can go forward and make sure that we kind of give a balance of the benefits and pay to our employees, because we are seeing, again, that concerted focus on the high utilization and the fact that we are so small. So if you have, I'm just throwing out a number so that we don't talk specifics, but if you have a claim that's $500,000 on a small base of employees, that's more impactful than if we had 150, 200 employees. So trying to look at ways that we can proactively lessen the impact of claim utilization, maybe even looking at different things with plan design, maybe looking at different things with contribution, and also looking at potentially switching to a more calendar year renewal of January to December to see if that'll help us. So we're looking at several things. So expect to see me coming up here again in a couple of months, kind of presenting something to you guys to move forward with that. But with it all said and done, if we go back out to market at the end of the year to try to get us on that calendar year and those rates are completely unfavorable, what we agreed to today is still going to be upheld. So we'll still go through the end of June for whatever plan that we choose to go with. So I do recommend that the governing body approve switching plans to select Blue KC Plan Alternative 2. That particular plan was the one that was most favorable to our employees with regard to the plan design, even though the increase between the 2 Blue KC plans was about 16% and 19%. The one I'm recommending is the 19% one, only because of those few key pieces with the out-of-pocket expenses and the the expenses for the visits to doctor's offices and things like that. Wanted to be as favorable as we could to our employees as we still strategize and look for going forward with that. And as I stated, Delta Dental and VSP are going to remain the same. And then at this time, we do recommend continuing to pay 100% of the premium. But as I mentioned before, kind of different contribution strategies are going to be looked at going forward. Any questions?
What did we end up budgeting in as far as an increase goes from previous year? Because you're saying that way we budgeted it, it could even handle the 39% based off how this is worded. So how much did we increase it this year to make sure we can cover it?
I can give you the total amount of what the entire budget was for medical. And I will point out that when we say in here that it's for the medical expenses, those medical expenses includes medical, dental, vision, our employee assistance program, as well as the city-provided life insurance. So it's the bucket of all of that. So the exact percentage,
I couldn't tell you.
right.
I was gonna say, I don't remember that we did. Remember a dollar amount.
Yeah, we budget about $1.1 million for medical. And you have to remember that the increase that she's talking about is for only 6 months of this year, so we'll only see 18% increase on that. We do have some savings because not all of our positions are filled that we budgeted for.
I think it was a little over 250-ish. Is that about right?
250.
250.
Quarter.
Yeah, I would say, I wanna say it was like
increase.
20 or 25%.
Yeah.
That's why I was
Yeah.
kinda surprised that the 39 would have been okay. If it's only 6 months, that makes sense.
So I have a question really quick. You said 100% of the premium, so all city employees get 100% of their?
Currently,
Oh.
they do, yes.
Okay,
And-
what if they add families and dependents?
Currently, that's included.
Oh,
So
That-
that's why part of the strategy and looking at ways to potentially make changes going forward is to look, do we want to change that contribution strategy at all? But currently, right now, it is 100% for single and family, and it's been that way for the last couple of years.
Yeah, we did that about 2 years ago when we were having a hard time retaining some employees, and some other cities had a lot bigger budgets and they were paying their employees
Yeah.
more. Like, what can we do
That's
that
a
will have
huge
a minimum impact to our budget, but a maximum impact to the employees and
Right.
everyone? And so that was,
that's a huge benefit.
and it's been a big winner, I think, from what
It,
I've
it,
heard.
it definitely has. I
Yeah.
can say that when we've gotten to the offer process and people have questions about that, and I tell them, and they do ask me again to make sure that I've said the right
I
thing.
bet.
And so, yes, it's definitely been positive.
Another question really quick. EAP, is that separate or is it a rider on this blue, Casey?
No, it's separate. I was
Okay.
just saying, making sure that you guys understood that that amount is not just for medical
Yeah.
alone. It's for medical, dental, vision, EAP, and the insurance. It's all of that. It's coming out of that money.
How does Blue KC stack up to Cigna as far as, are people gonna have issues finding people that are covered?
No,
Use
the
the take-back
network, the
coverage?
network is still going to be strong.
Okay.
So there shouldn't be any issues with that.
Okay. Is this part of Blue Cross or is it? Okay.
Which, yeah.
Alright, cool.
So
They have their own.
I know I think a couple of years ago, and it was probably the same year that we moved to 100% coverage, but we got a really good deal that year. And it went up some from the first year to the second year. These are big numbers going up. Can we hope that or think that that's gonna stop or slow down, or, cause
Hitting everything.
like sustainability with these kinds of increases is gonna be a major problem.
Yeah.
Yes, that is correct, which is why there's some focus on other ways that
How-
we can,
yeah.
what can we do?
You mentioned a bunch of
Yes,
them, yes.
yes.
With the 100% issue, which I love as a added bonus, cause I don't know that I've ever seen an employer do that.
Usually it's just for the single, it's not for the family. So
Yeah,
That's their.
so, but, and I really don't wanna consider that, but at some point we might have to,
Yeah.
so.
Does this one give any kind of kickback like our last one where it was like a refund?
Dividend?
Situation? No? So that's going away.
But the
Are we still
percentage-
eligible for that from the previous one?
When you're saying the kickback,
Wasn't it on the health insurance where there's a dividend that we got back at the end of the year?
There was potential for that.
For the potential for it?
Yes.
And that potential is not there anymore?
Yeah, that's correct.
Okay.
Yeah, when you switch companies. And that's probably I think that was a key piece of the good deal we got 2
Yeah,
years ago.
yeah, that first year was
That was
a huge, whatever you wanna call it. I call it kick turn.
Yeah, I hesitate to use the word kickback.
Do we do HSAs?
We do have HSAs,
Okay.
but the city does not contribute
Right.
to it, though, yes.
I would remind you too that 2 years ago you set up an employee health care reserve fund that we've been building to a year's worth of premiums, which has a balance of about $800,000 in it. And we could, that's the point of that reserve fund, is when we run into increases or changes in policies, we can help lessen the blow to the city's budget and to the employee if necessary. And that is never been used since we created it 2 years ago.
I think we're seeing this across the board with insurance
Oh.
companies. I don't know if
yeah.
you've looked at your homeowner's insurance or
Everything.
any kind
Car
of insurance.
insurance.
Yeah, it's just go skyrocketing.
Yep.
I was talking to 2 different insurance agents today and they said it's just astronomical, the numbers that are just going up.
Yeah. And I wanted to, Mr. Pill, give you specifics. So the surplus that we had potentially left over with Cigna this plan year was about $5,000. So,
Oh, so that's kind of dissipated.
Yeah.
yes.
Not as good as what we got the first year.
Well, my motto is with insurance, every couple of years, I never stick with the same one. You never really keep the same deal if you stick with it. It's one of those things you can't be loyal to them because they seem to just keep going up if you stay with the same company. So
Yeah.
it's good that we look out and we got a lot of options this year. This one
Yeah.
seems like a pretty good option based off of what we have.
Yes.
So
I would love for us to remain consistent, though, from a
It's hard on-
provider perspective.
I get it.
But it is very difficult.
yeah. Well, okay.
Any other questions or comments?
No.
If not, I entertain a motion.
Move to approve selection of Blue KC Plan Alternative 2, Delta Dental and VSP as the providers for the 24-25 plan year, and remain paying 100% of the premium cost.
Second.
Got a motion and a second. Is there any further discussion? If not, all those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries 4-0-0.
Thank you.
Thank you. Now we'll end formal council action at this time and move on to announcements and reports. I did have an announcement. I just wanted to announce that it is City Clerks Week this week, and so I want to thank Miss Glenda Garrity. She's been here 30-plus years, and so that's for anybody, for any company, 30 years is a long time. So we appreciate all her hard work and her many, many years of working here. She's been through a lot here and seen a lot, and if you have any questions, I'm sure she could probably answer just about any of them. So she's a wealth of knowledge, so we're happy to have her on our team, and thank you for all your hard work.
Thank you.
Yep.
With that, I think that's about all I got. I'm enjoying the nice weather the last few days. Glad the rain stopped for a little bit. So, Mr. Young,
No report.
Mr. Van Houten.
Yeah, so just, the mayor and I had the opportunity to be out at Summit Homes today for the groundbreaking of the Children's Mercy, was it Heroes for, I can't remember what their logo, their motto was, but.
Took a picture of it. I'll see if it says on my picture.
Yeah, it was a really good program. One of the developers in our community is doing a house for Children's Mercy, and they're donating that, and all the proceeds will go to kids, so.
Summit Homes for Little Heroes.
Yeah, it's
Partnership
cool.
with Children's Mercy. And I'll expound on that just a little bit. So what they do is they build a house, the developer donates the house, and then a lot of the vendors donate a lot of their service and work in it. And they build the house, and then they sell the house, and all the proceeds of the house they donate to Children's Mercy.
Okay.
Oh, that's
And
great.
so, like they said last year, I think they did one other one here last year, and it was like a $600,000 house. And because people know that it was for donation to charity, I think it sold for like $850,000. And so all that money is then donated to Children's Mercy. So it was really cool to be a part of it and see it. And somebody here in our community, and they said they'd like to do more here as well. So it was kind of cool to talk with them about that.
Yeah,
So
Foxwood Ranch.
yeah,
It's building-
Foxwood Ranch.
Yeah, there's a lot of development going on there, so that's all I got.
I got to speak with the head of Summit Homes, and they said they want to keep going and do more. So yeah, and also the CEO of Children's Mercy was there, so that was kind of cool to meet him as well, and he was very grateful for our community. And he said he actually rides his bike down here in Spring Hill all the time, so he said he knows these streets like the back of his hand. So, and he didn't complain about the potholes, so we must be getting a little bit better. Mr. Peel.
One small thing, our bi-monthly blood drive is coming up 2 weeks from today on the 23rd. We bumped this one back a little bit later. Some of the feedback we got was at the noon to 4 time, not very helpful for working folks. So this one's gonna be 2 to 6. It's still pretty early in the evening, but it gives you the chance to get home and hopefully get in there. You can sign up via appointment, or they take walk-ins also. I think the donation goal for Spring Hill is usually 40 units, and we had been hitting in the 65 to 75% range pretty consistently. So we're trying to bump it up and market it a little bit better and get it out there. So it's a really great way to give back. It doesn't hurt too much, doesn't take too much of your time, and it's a really good thing. So
Awesome. One more thing I want to note on that house thing with Children's Mercy. Some of you don't know some of my personal life. My oldest daughter, she's 20 years old now, but she had a double lung transplant. And so we spent, from the time she was born, we spent 4 months in Children's Mercy Hospital. And then we've been there thousands of times since over the last 20 years. So that was kind of near and dear to my heart because we've used that facility so much over the last 20 years. And I'm sure some of you, your family members, have utilized that as well. So it's kind of cool. Mrs. Feedback.
I have no report.
Mr. Massey.
Guess better turn this on. This week is Public Service Week, Public Servants Week, and it's also City Clerks Week. Want to thank all of the employees within the city and our city clerk and our deputy city clerk for all the good work that they do. Going into the summertime, it's going to be a hot, busy summer with streets and all the activities that they do with mowing and taking care of the parks. So just wanted to throw that out there. I'm not sure how they got both weeks with clerks and with public servants weeks, but anyway, it's, wanted to thank everybody for that.
Mr. Lau.
No report.
Chief Henson.
Just to let you know that on drug take back, which we had a couple weeks ago, we actually doubled the amount of drop-offs that we've had in the past, so that it was a really good result. So I think getting the word out and more people are learning about it. That's it.
Mr. Burton. Madam Clerk.
Oh, okay. Thank you again for that. And then I went to congratulate Ashley Wood, and I think there were a couple other employees that attended the Chamber Leadership Spring Hill class, and this week was graduation. And so she's a graduate of the Leadership Chamber of Commerce. And hopefully those education points will go towards her MMC, but, we'll just have to check it out. So it was, it started in January, I think, and it was like every other week for a full day, so
Yeah, I think
a lot of
they had
hours. And
16 people, I think, go through it, something like that.
oh, Mr. Peel, were you a student?
Yep.
Mrs. Feedback? Yeah. And Kathy? And I believe was there a police officer? Yeah.
Ned.
So we had a good representation from our employees and representatives. So, yeah, exciting stuff. So, thank you.
I'll piggyback on that a little bit, and it was really enjoyable to see Kathy Burke that works in finance. She was a part of the class, and she would come back every week really excited about where she had gone and what she learned and tell the rest of us all about it. And then we would, get to discussing something and she'd say, well, in leadership, and then, tell us some point. So it's really wonderful to see, one, the enthusiasm about it, and two, putting it to work.
I always enjoy, I get to pop into those sometimes and go to, took the tour a couple years ago around kind of some of the historic areas, and that was fun to just see. I mean, I've lived here for 20 years, but there was still things about the city I didn't know, and I think Keith Stiles and Mr. Meek did that one that year, and so they have a wealth of knowledge just of the whole community and city and stuff. Both those families have been here for generations and generations, so it's kind of cool to go about the community that I've lived in for years, but didn't know some of the historical things that were around the community, so that's cool. Mrs. Jones.
No report.
Mr. Spear.
So,
I think it died.
Speak out.
All right, so we were talking earlier this evening about the street maintenance program, pavement condition indexes. This year's street maintenance improvement program will be kicking off in about a week and a half. So they will be starting with base repairs that were talked about earlier tonight. In some of the streets just west of here, those streets that are going to be chip sealed. They showed the pictures of the alligator cracking. Where we have those base failures on those roads, they will dig up and repair the base first here, starting in about a week and a half, in advance of the chip seal later in the summer. So you'll start to see some activity related to that topic that we discussed earlier tonight.
What about some of that? I think last time we were talking about the leftover money from the other projects. Are those also going to be part of that maintenance program, or is that separate from what we're doing?
So we saw some, and Greg referenced it tonight, we saw some really good bid prices. Prices came in lower than anticipated. So we had some money left in the budget. We've added to the quantities. There are some additional streets that we are going to get to maintain and make improvements on that we wouldn't have otherwise. But because of the source of the funding, we're limited to spending that on streets.
Yeah.
But yeah, we're.
I just didn't know if those were part of that same timeline, or are those still pretty far out for? Because that wasn't it going to be
It's
like
included
North
with this
Victory?
year's program, I think.
Yeah, same timeline. That's just adding to these.
Just adding to it. Okay, that's what I was just asking. All right, cool.
Cover more
More
more area. All right, with that ends announcements and reports, and we do have one executive session here. So with that, I entertain a motion to move into executive session.
This the 20-minute one.
I believe so.
All right. 20 minutes.
Yep.
We can do 15 if you want. We'll be back.
I don't care. Whatever. I move the city council recess an executive session for 15 minutes to receive advice of council, discuss potential economic development pursuant KSA 75-4319B2 of the Kansas Open Meetings Act. The open meeting will resume in the city council chambers at 8:47 p.m. No formal action is anticipated following the session. Persons be in attendance: Lane Massey, City Administrator; Jacob Spear, Public Works Director; Rhonda Dunn, Finance Director; and Spencer Lau, City Attorney.
Second.
Got a motion, a second. Is there any further discussion? If not, all those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries 4-0-0. We will see you guys shortly. Welcome back, everyone. Let the record reflect that the governing body reconvened into open meeting at 8:47 PM. No votes were taken or decisions made during the executive session. The discussion was limited to the subject stated, and with that, I entertain a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Second.
Got a motion, a second. Is there any further discussion? Not all those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries 4-0-0. Have a great night, everyone.